Welcome back, everybody, to This Week in Rideshare podcast by Legal Rideshare, where Kim and I, by the way, we've been telling you, they do 20-minute episodes. That's it. And they really hit on a lot of the subjects even we talk about, but they do it in a different way. And so we've talked to them and we're having a lot of fun doing these reaction videos. They're having fun with it. They're loving it. So make sure you guys are staying, that you're subscribing to Legal Rideshare. All the info's in both of our descriptions. And, check and make sure that you've got their information saved. And we're going to dive into this week. Well, Kim, how are you?
I am good. How are you? You can't forget to tell everybody, make sure also in the description, save their number, their website, their email address in your phone. It is so super important. I hope no one ever has to use them, but you never know if you're ever going to be in an accident, you're personally injured while you're out doing gig work. It is a fantastic number to always have saved in your contacts. So save them in your contacts.
And Kim's right. Just take a screenshot or make a contact. Like I have a contact because Kim and I have contact with them, but like make a contact. Just Legal Rideshare. Plus, if you make it 2 words, you don't even have to remember what their name is. You just put in legal and it'll find it on your phone. So make a contact, if you like the website. By the way, they have social media platforms on everything, but I just wanted to real quickly say to you guys that are wondering what Kim and I are doing with this safety campaign. It's real clear. We're trying to create more safety as we keep hearing more and more stories than we ever thought we would. I thought the peak was a while ago, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And we need to be careful. That's why we talk about the dash cam. That's why we're working with these guys. Because if you guys don't have Legal Rideshare, or if your uncle isn't a lawyer who works in the gig economy space or whatever, you're going to end up, if you're in a situation, calling your insurance, getting into the internet and researching lawyers. Good luck, because that's about the worst way to find a lawyer. And these guys, yes, they're in Chicago, but it does not matter where you are. You can be in any state in the country, and they might not be the one to handle or whatever, but they're going to send you to the next step, and they're going to do it for free.
Yeah, I think the key word is awareness. I feel like we just need everybody to be aware of what your options are around safety in particular, because we want everybody to stay safe, right? As a driver, you never want to see anybody get hurt or in an accident or whatever the case may be. We want everybody to really just be safe. And I feel like we're bringing an awareness with Legal Rideshare to the gig community, and to have a lawyer specifically dedicated to gig workers, I think is truly amazing.
And to add to that, you guys, when you're in an accident, you're very, you're all over the place. So it gets very hard to go, wait, what was I going to do? What's the first step? That's why, like Kim was saying, have it on your phone, because you don't need to call your insurance. They'll help you decide how to time out which calls and whatnot. That's what the consultation's for. So call them first, and just say, hey, this just happened. And again, that goes for if you're at fault. So, I mean, look, if some of you guys are going, yeah, but I was at fault. That's okay. These are still the people you want, because they know this law the best. And they're going to make sure you're not taken advantage of. Yes, if you're at fault, you're at fault. You're going to have to deal with it, but they're going to represent you the best. And I also wanted to say that, so if you are hurt doing gig app work, driving, picking up passengers or food, while driving from pickup to drop off, at drop off, something happens and so on. But I also got clarification on something we talked about last week and that Kim and I were talking about this week. I got it today from them that yes, they do handle dog attacks.
That's amazing.
So we really, because I've had a couple people reach out to me that, like, Edward is a friend in California. He got very mangled by a dog. I haven't heard from him in a while, but I have his email. I'm going to email him and say, hey, have you talked to anybody? Because, like, I know he was just trying to get better. But now that they said this, hey, call them, man. I mean, and I know, Kim, I know you hear this too. Like, I know that I saw your video about all the dogs chasing, or and I even saw you laughing because it was a duet on TikTok, but on some of them. But, like, to be honest, like, some of those dogs aren't biting or whatever, but you could trip and break your ankle.
Mm-hmm.
like just trying to back off from a dog that probably isn't going to bite you. But when it comes out of nowhere, you don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
And so, now that I know that they handle that too, it's, again, guys, like if you're thinking, well, again, they have the video up that says we are not, or, are we ambulance chasers? They put it as a question. I still challenge you guys to watch that, because they're not. And what they explain to you is they actually understand this law to the point you'd be taken advantage of. So they want to make sure you're not. So legal rideshare needs to be the first call you make. Why do I say this? They have more experience in this space than any attorney you will find on your own. I know in Denver, we have a guy, Frank Azar. He's called the strong arm. Every city has one of these guys, right? Where it's like the strong arm will get you money. But I've known Frank Azar for a long time. He used to come into the bar that I was running, and I actually know him. He doesn't know anything about gig law. So he's just trying to get up some clients. Like, again, like, yeah, he'll represent you, but he doesn't know what he's doing. I would rather call Legal Rideshare and have them say, yeah, don't use Frank Azar, call this other guy.
Yeah.
Because maybe they know the person in Denver I should be contacting with, or at least they'll help me. But they give you a free consultation. I know a lot of places do, but you're getting a free consultation from people who understand the space. Hopefully you will never need to, but just in case, reach out to info at Legal Rideshare, their phone number, like Kim said, take a picture, whatever. Just have them in your wallet, have them in your phone, have them in something. And also, please go subscribe to Legal Rideshare on YouTube. Give them a like, give them a subscribe, give them a comment.
Say
Let them
Kim
know
and
that we
Steve
sent you. Yeah, they love that. So, and if you're feeling bold, they're great people. They will not view this weird. Challenge them. Sorry, Brian. Sorry, Jared.
I say sorry, guys.
But we challenge them. So I'm just saying, like, challenge them, because they actually do like that, because they know a ton about this and the law, but they don't know what we go through. And sometimes we introduce what the new thing is that's going on, and they're not fully up to date on like how that is working or how a scam is playing out or something. So you might raise something to them where they're very happy you did. So don't hold back a comment unless you're just trolling and being a jerk. Then I would say absolutely hold back, because they're lawyers. And I've known Brian a long time, and Jared, and again, they're lawyers. So so yeah, go give them a subscribe. Every week on Friday, they do about 22 minutes, 3 topics, and that's it. 1 video a week. In fact, go to the video link in the description, like, subscribe, drop a hello, tell them Kim and Steve sent you. And Kim, I think you got a couple more things, right?
Just go and make sure you have all their contact information in your phone. That's really what it's really all about.
I meant here.
Oh, I'm like, huh? What?
Yeah, but I mean, you did just address one. Plug everyone should have this info saved on their phone. Absolutely. Check out legalrideshare.com. Oh, the survey.
Oh, yeah, that's the important one, guys. Right now they're looking for drivers to go and take a survey. If you take the survey, you could be entered to win $100 gift card. I know I would love $100.
2 minutes.
Yeah, it's so super easy. The link is in the description of both of our of this live. So go check out the survey, take it real quick, and you can be entered to win $100 gift card. So super easy.
Open it in a new browser tab while you're watching this today.
There you go.
And do it. I mean, that's how quick it is. You'll be right back over here, and then you're in.
Multitask.
So, I mean, again, if any of you out there in the condition that we are all in this economy are going, I'm not going to do it for just $100, then wow, you must be doing a lot better than me, because $100 is $100, and if you can win it, why not try? And you're helping them out.
Yep, you have to be in it to win it.
But okay, so Kim, are we ready to weigh in on the subjects this week?
We're ready. Let's do it.
Okay, so wait, how do I have to turn it? Oh, here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, drivers, gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Hoffa. It is Friday, August 2nd. And this week, the dirty truth behind delivery, Uber goes AV and drivers get unlocked. Legal Rideshare breaks it down. And from Legal Rideshare, I'm joined by the co-founder, lead attorney, and all-around great guy, Brian Creedy. Brian, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. You make me blush. You know, come on more often.
You gotta get some optimism in here. You know, it's a cloudy day in Chicago, but you know, we're still in high spirits, right?
It's true. Our spirits never get rained down.
They don't. And we're gonna start this week in Rideshare a little bit differently. We've had a lot of new subscribers, which thank you guys so much. You rock. And so you'll see at the bottom here on the screen, I'm gonna point to the camera here. All our subscribers are going to start listing them out because we really appreciate it. You guys keep us going, and it's great. And so we're also going to respond to some comments we had from the week before and the week before that from some viewers. So one of the first things we got here, which I think was great, is Stephen Kim sent me this way. They're talking about the guys and gals from Rideshare Rodeo. They said, good topics. Thanks for looking out for drivers. Thank you, Thomas, for joining us and being part of it. And we got another response from another Thomas Matthias. He said, Amazon and lots of companies don't want employees to report anything. I deliver food and I haven't fallen yet on snow in driveways, but I know some drivers have and never report it. The numbers are so much higher than people think. Safety is overlooked by companies much too often. They said, nice show. Keep up the work. So Brian, we talked about this a little bit last week. It's something that we had confirmed, and now we have gig workers saying the same thing. So pretty wild. That's what's going on out there.
It is. You know, we really appreciate the comments because we want to hear from the people who are on the ground. We want to know what's going on out there. We want to know what topics are important, what hazards people are facing, because the more we know, the more we can act and the more we can advocate. So we really appreciate everybody who, one, is watching, and two, who's dropping comments in our comment section, because, you know, we've got our ear to the ground. We want to be part of this community and advocate as much as we can on your behalf.
Absolutely. And that said, we're going to head into our first story. This is from an Uber Eats worker sharing his life as a delivery driver. And this is from Business Insider. And they reported, quote, in May of 2023, I got laid off from my full-time job in SEO and started driving for Uber Eats to pay my rent. I would recommend doing literally anything else than delivering food for a living. I would start my days at 5 a.m. and work till midnight, usually get less than $1 per mile, but Uber will also suggest deliveries that just aren't worth it. Like a $3 delivery, but from point A to point B is 12 miles. That's before factoring in gas, which you have to cover yourself. And it's around $4 a gallon where I live. Taking all those orders means you're almost paying Uber to work. Maybe 1 out of every 40 orders is truly worth your time. I could be waiting for hours too. Sometimes I needed to make money to eat, so I would throw a couple gallons of gas in and only take home $20. That meant I couldn't pay bills. I was just making enough to survive. Fortunately, I had a good support system of friends to fall back on. If it wasn't for them, I would have been sleeping in my car. Wow. You know, I understand we've talked about this before. This isn't, you know, big numbers. This isn't quantitative, but yet again, a very personal, very to the point story. Unbelievable, Brian.
Yeah, you know, it's really awful. And I appreciate this individual wrote this piece because we need to hear the individual story. We need to hear what it's like for this worker doing this job and how difficult it has become. When we started this firm a decade ago, gig work was good work. There was plenty of money to be made. Drivers were not having to work crazy long hours. They could meet their expenses. They could they could fill up their tanks with gas and still bring home money to keep a roof over their head and food on the table. And a lot of people changed their lifestyle in order to do that. They quit traditional jobs and started to take the gig economy more seriously as a long-term career path. But in the recent years, it's gotten so bad that drivers just cannot afford to do it. And it's not just Uber Eats, it's Uber, it's Lyft, it's, you name it, the wages and pay rates have just gotten so small that drivers cannot afford to do this for a long period of time. It's really just a way to make a couple bucks here and there. But if you're relying on these jobs for your full-time income, it's really difficult. And it doesn't have to be that way. How do we know that? Because that's not the way it's always been. So the companies have just gotten really greedy. They've kept more of the money for themselves, and they've trapped people. People don't have other careers to fall back on once they've made the move. And here we find ourselves. And I just think that this person's story will resonate with a lot of others who have dealt with the same issues. And hopefully the story is read by the community. Hopefully it's read by politicians, because more people need to understand how bad things are.
Yeah, there's two things, and everyone really should read this article. Again, it's on Business Insider. It just came out this week. There's two things that really struck me, Brian, about this, and I'm reading it now. There's two things that we've also discussed that drivers are frustrated with. One is Uber basically forcing unprofitable trips or deliveries on this driver. We've heard that before. And the second is, as we also just talked about last week, he mentions, I didn't bring it up when we discussed this, but he mentions that when the customer enters a tip, he can't see the tip. He has no idea how much the tip is until after he's accepted the delivery. So again, it always seems to come back to the same word, transparency. And they don't have it. And just like you said in the beginning of rideshare and gig work, it was profitable. So, taking the risks were much smaller. But you're seeing this simple transparency here could change these people's lives. He even said he's rolling the dice every single time he did a delivery, and 1 out of 40 he's estimating was worth his time. I mean, it's crazy to me.
It is. Just a $3 trip, it is inhumane. Like, what are we talking about? You're going to pay the driver $3 to drive 12 miles. How much time is that going to take in terms of going into the restaurant, picking up the food, getting back in the car, driving to make the delivery, and then having to find the next fare when maybe you're out of the way from where you otherwise want to be? So it's just crazy that that's even on the table. And I think more people need to understand that when they are placing these deliveries, the people who are bringing them the food are struggling. And, I would hope that everybody can be a little more generous in terms of tips, but ultimately, I don't think it's on the customer to pay Uber's workers. It's on the company, and the company needs to do better.
Yeah, 100%. It's sad to see, but I'm glad it's out there, like you said. We're going to head on to the second.
All right, Kim, what do you got?
Okay, so I feel like I'm going to go in two different directions with this.
I had
I'll
like 4 things. I'm trying to figure out what I'm
trying to kind of dissect it a little bit. So I'll start with the positive, and I'm going to go with, I agree with Brian. Like, the gig economy, especially Uber Eats, is not what it used to be. Like, you could just work Uber Eats years ago and make a really decent living. Fast forward, like, Uber Eats used to be my number one app that I would do over $1,000 a week easily on Uber Eats. And now Uber Eats is just, I agree. There are days where you have to go through 40 to get like one decent order, unless you really know how to work the Uber Eats platform, which I guess is my second part of it. To me, it seems like for someone who's working Uber Eats full time, they haven't watched YouTube, or they haven't understood that multi-apping is really the way to go, and not just working one single app. And I feel like he really didn't decline much. So I don't understand why you would take, what was it, $3 for 12 miles? Like, why would you even take something like that? Like,
I mean, the only thing that came to my mind was, and it always does these days, is a legal account. And I'm not talking about migrants. I'm not talking, just any illegal account, because you're not going to be taxed on it. It's sad, but true.
I guess I
But even then, yeah, I hear you.
I feel like a lot of drivers, and I've said this before, don't make this a business. And it is a business, right? Like, there is a dollar to mile ratio. There is things that you can do to make trips profitable on Uber Eats, on DoorDash, on any one of these apps. And I feel like you need to learn the business side, opposed to just taking $3 for 12 miles, because you do see those on Uber Eats. It is like,
Oh, yeah.
it's decline, 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 decline,
I mean,
decline. Oh,
luckily, the
okay.
one nice thing is they don't penalize you for it.
And that's the thing with Uber Eats, like, you can decline away until you get the right order, which I guess is why I'm confused on why he was only making, I don't know. The whole article, the beginning of it, to me sounded a little off. I mean, my
Yeah.
heart bleeds if he was struggling, but I feel like there's different ways to go to make money besides just doing what he was doing.
Well, I'm also tying in part of what he was saying, how, like, hey, listen, people are leaving their W-2s and coming over to the gig economy. And that goes to my point that, and again, probably none of you listening to this, I would hope, because if even if you're not doing that well, you're listening to try and get a little better at something and fine tune it. But not everybody belongs in the service industry. I've said this many times. And if those people are quitting W-2s and going, hey, my friend's making a bunch of money on this and I don't feel like dealing with this boss anymore, I'm just going to do that. The term "I'm just going to do that" doesn't sound to me like you're going to do very well.
No, I agree.
And I feel like that's kind of, it's either like, I'm going to go crush it. And those are the people who I feel like, okay, you've been in the service industry, you're going to give it your best go. The people who are like, I'm sick of my job, I'm just going to do gig work. To me, like, maybe not always, but for the most part, that's a red flag, because I feel like you're going to be set up for disappointment. And again, I do have to say this: who is doing just Uber Eats?
That was kind of my point. I'm like,
I
just
mean, it's
Uber
one thing
Eats.
to
I'm like,
not be
that's rough.
multi-apping, but like not even two. You can't do Grubhub, you can't do DoorDash, you can't.
I think the state that the gig economy is in order to win monetarily wise, it's having multiple streams of income. I feel like that is the
100%.
formula for still succeeding in the gig economy. Like, you need to get out of the mindset of what was 4 or 5 years ago and get into the mindset of what is right now. And yeah, I can't imagine just working Uber Eats, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, we'll end it with that, because I'll add a little more to that, like you just said it. If you can't make what you made years ago, and there's some content creators out there who are like, oh, it's just summer slowdown, oh, it's just this, or they're going the other extreme. But bottom line is, you gotta be multi-apping, and it's not going to be 3 years ago. And don't shoot the messenger, but it's not going to be 3 years ago ever again. Now, again, the gig economy is not going anywhere. They said it. I know this. It's growing at a global rate that how could America not keep up? But there's a lot of other spaces coming in. There's a lot of redefinition going on. There's a lot of, I mean, every state's doing different things. So it's going to get complicated. And again, part of these companies is loving it. Like, well, yeah, we want North Dakota, Florida, and Wyoming to all be on different pages. That way, if they talk, they're like, what? I see this. Well, I don't have that.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want you to be, it's kind of like their fight with all of these states about you can't collectively bargain. They also don't want you collectively talking. I mean, the one area they can't get away with is like, if Kim and I were in the same zone, we could talk, because that's a talk we could sit down and have over coffee and say, listen, what's going on with you lately? Like, I'm seeing all this crap. Like, but I can't do that from Denver, because Kim will have an opinion on it, but she can't relate to it. And also cost of living. Where Kim lives is very expensive. Where I live is very expensive. So if we're living in Nebraska, you only need to make a third of what we make.
Yeah.
So I feel like the burden's more on us, the bigger city people with very high cost of living. That's where the real burden is. So when you guys hear our numbers, realize we're just, and I've even not put them out there as much anymore. I just say I'm doing good, because I don't want people getting like, oh, I'm screwing up. No, what's your cost of living? If it's a third of mine and you have money left at the end of the month, you might be doing better than me.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that said, we'll move into the second one. But yeah, I also, a big part of that for me was like, who is just working Uber Eats? Because if I did that, I said this before as a joke, like if I did that, I actually would have to stop doing this.
I couldn't honestly, I couldn't do just one
4 hours
app.
a
I mean, I know drivers who do just DoorDash and kill it. I know drivers who do just Grubhub and kill it. I have not found that same success, so hats off to people who can do it. I just think you also have to know what your cost of living is. Find that out first before you even start doing the gig economy, so you know how much you have to make per day in order to survive comfortably.
And even if you're leaving a job to go to the gig economy and you don't need to hear our opinions and you're just going to do it anyway, I would even say, like, if you're leaving your job and you're thinking, I'm just going to go full time to gig economy, I would say, even though you might struggle for a couple weeks, start off part time. Even if you need that full time, start off part time and really take your time doing some orders. You're not going to make the money you want, but you need to learn this first before you can gauge it. You just do. So let's see what this second one is.
Story here. Uber plans to use 100,000 electric cars in Europe and develop AV. This is from CNBC, and they reported, quote, Uber and BYD announced Wednesday that drivers on the ride-hailing platform can get pricing and financing deals for the Chinese company's electric cars starting in Europe and Latin America. The two companies will also develop autonomous capable vehicles for Uber's platform, according to a press release. The multi-year strategic partnership, which the company said could bring 100,000 of these BYD cars to Uber, comes despite the EU following the US this year in raising tariffs on imports of Chinese-made electric cars. Now, this company, BYD, has become a dominant player in China's electric car market. The company surpassed Tesla in total vehicle production for 2 straight years and has ramped up overseas expansion. Brian, this is interesting in a few ways. They're pushing the EV, I think, which is good. They're also really pushing the AV, which I feel like we discuss every week. Your thoughts?
We really do. I'm not going to get into the politics of tariffs and all that, but just as a general concept, I think that the idea that we're going towards electric is great. I think it's a positive thing that Uber has these partnerships in place with various companies to try to put more electric vehicles in the hands of drivers, make the financing advantageous so that drivers can get into these vehicles. And ultimately, that's a better driver experience, worker experience, because you're spending less money on gas. More money can hopefully stay in the driver's pocket. And the environmental effects are obvious as well. So that, we've got a lot of Uber cars on the road. We've got a lot of Uber drivers. I think trying to find ways to put them in electric vehicles is awesome all around. In terms of the AV, as you've said, we talk about this a lot. This technology in this particular partnership has not yet been created. So I'm not going to comment on whether it's good or bad, but I just am going to cross my fingers that, as we say all the time, they do the work, they do the testing, they work out all the kinks before putting them on the road. I mean, we don't need another set of unsafe AV vehicles being tested on our roadways, and we'll see what happens here. But hopefully the technology is good, and we'll see in years to come what happens.
Yeah, the first thought I really had about this, again, we talk about this all the time. And also it's quite fascinating. I just had this conversation with friends the other day, and I shocked them. I mean, their jaw almost hit the floor, because we're discussing autonomous vehicles, and they said, look, we're not going to see these things on the road until they're 100% perfect. And I said, well, actually, they're already on the roads. They're already in San Francisco and LA and in Phoenix, and they couldn't believe it. I'm like, no, they're completely coming here regardless of being perfect. And they're going to make it to Chicago for sure. The other thing that's interesting about this, and maybe it won't be an issue, although I can't imagine it's not going to be, when you start to, and we're seeing this even with TikTok, when you start to get involved in the technical side and you're involving Chinese technology, they're often very strict about how much they release, if anything goes wrong, or how much data or privacy. And so if something does happen to these autonomous vehicles that are Chinese based, it's going to be a real struggle between Uber saying, we're not telling you anything, and then BYD really saying, you're never getting any data out of this. We're not going to tell you if there's a glitch.
Right.
And this is an issue with other tech that's coming from China. So, this is so new. It could take years until we see the effects of that, but it might not, it could be a very, very bad thing.
Yeah. Well, from a legal perspective, we need data. We need information. When something goes wrong, we need to know the cause of it. It wasn't the technology. Was there a glitch? Was there something that could have been prevented? That if somebody gets hurt, we need to have answers. And as you mentioned, as we've seen with other Chinese technology, those answers can be hard to find. We also know that Uber doesn't share all the information that it could. So if we have two sources of of technology that cause an injury, and neither one of them is going to cooperate with the legal process, it can be really hard for the person who gets injured due to that technology. So hopefully there's regulation in place. Hopefully we have a full understanding of the technology and the rules and the policies, and we're just not there yet. So I'd like to see the government step up and create some standards that everybody knows they have to follow before this technology hits the road.
Yeah, as I always say, time will tell, and often we talk about it the following week, and there's an update, and there may be this time. I guess we'll see. And our final story here: New York City.
Okay, Steve, you're up. I know you're going to have a lot to say about this one, so
I am, but not too bad, because really they agree with me. I just have a couple things to add to it. Because even Brian's going, yeah, AV, more testing. Come on, guys. He pretty much was saying, come on, guys, like, we're not there. That's what I hear from everybody. I talk to engineers in the field. I have a guy from Cruise Autonomous coming on, the new safety engineer, is in like 7 weeks on the podcast. And when I discussed it, it was more about a realistic timeline. I can say this: GM was paired with Cruise. Cruise was kicked out of a bunch of states. GM ended their autonomous vehicle department, and GM cut their EVs into 25% of their production rate in prior years now. So they've left autonomous, and they've gone from electric vehicles, and they've said, no, we got to make less. Because here's the thing: people aren't buying them not only because they're just not ready to make that full switch. And we've talked about this before. We feel like they skipped right over hybrid, right at the time when all of us were seeing these new hybrids, and there were different ways of doing it. You could plug in your car, get the first 50 miles every day on electric. If you went over, it went into your gas. So, that's a great idea. Like I feel like once we got hybrid down, we just went, okay, full EV. And I've dissected this so many times. Like, I don't know who we have to tell in this country that doesn't understand that the infrastructure is not there. If the infrastructure is not there, you can't. This is why Uber Freight. This is why electric trucking. This is why all of this is not happening, because none of first of all, the roads are in bad condition. There's no charging ports. What do you? And for 18 wheelers, you're gonna need one like every 30 miles.
Yeah.
So it's like, where is all this coming from? It to me, this is like the California story. It's like, okay, well, everybody's going to have an EV and a home charging port by 2025. Really, Governor Newsom? Because last summer you were telling people to turn off the air conditioners, and they throttled the home units that did have charging ports. So if you're already doing that on a hot summer day, where are we at? Because the grid in California is a mess. So, if you can't run a window air conditioner unit, how are we going to charge how is every person in California going to have an EV?
Yeah.
As far as autonomous, I think it's a joke. And again, the other thing I did want to mention is that also GM took their autonomous that isn't full autonomous like Cruise or Waymo or any of those, and they were trying to get to level 5, but they backed from 4 back to 3. So now they're back to, like, if you're going off the road, like road restabilization and bringing you back and helping you parking assist and things like that. Like, they went backwards and said, we're not even where we thought we were. And to me, I don't know. I just feel like I got to say, I don't know exactly because I feel like I'm disagreeing with these guys a little bit. But that's what we need to do. But I don't think EVs are going to be, I think EVs are losing a little steam. I think they're going to be around. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think that what I was feeling a year ago is that same buzz with EV. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not buying one anytime soon.
Yeah, honestly, I would buy a hybrid before I
Yeah,
got EV.
of
I feel
course.
like to your point, we just jumped over a hybrid, and I think that's the good bridge until the technology is right. Do I think AV will be the future? Yes, I think it's something that needs to be perfected, and I think it's something that we can look forward to X amount of years from now. But it's not, to me, it's not perfected right now, and it's causing more harm than good. And you have to kind of outweigh the good and the bad, right? So when you look at AV, like all these incidents of crashes and people getting hurt and going into places they're not supposed to go, like there's so many
Mhm.
stories out there that we're just not ready for that technology yet. Not to say it won't be in the future. It's just, to me, not now.
And we're dealing with sketchy companies. I mean, Uber, all these Waymo, even like all these companies that whenever they say, hey, we're about to hit level 5 autonomous, they're not even close. They're just doing that for investors' sake.
I think as a company, and I think I would be the same way though if I ran a company, wouldn't you want to be the first of something?
Sure.
So I think it's a race right now, right? Of who can get this done the quickest, and they really don't care about the results or how it's affecting. Like they just want to be known as the company and the innovator of making sure that they're the leader of AV, not realizing there's consequences behind it.
Right. And before we move to that last topic, I guess all I would add is that if you want to kind of prove the point, look at VTOL, vertical takeoff and landing vehicles that we're going to be floating around LA and landing on every rooftop that doesn't have a helipad because they just are. We're just going to do that. The only thing that came out of that were 2 Uber helicopters in New York. Helicopters, nothing special, just a helicopter ride. So vertical and takeoff landing vehicles that at these showrooms look like these Vegas rooms that are just like multicolored. Those are just for show. Those are not happening. We're at a helicopter. We've had a helicopter for 50, 70, 80, 90 years. So I mean, like, to me, I think that this is why Uber backed away from saying they're a tech company, because they're not tech, and these techs aren't even close. It's just every time they need to get a buzz or create a story, and you know this, Kim, like if they just want to get a story in the news, they just say, hey, we just made some progress on EV. Every article, every newspaper picks them up the next day.
Yeah.
And
Free
so they
publicity.
get press, even if it's about VTOL. It's like the name Uber is popping up on every paper. So it's like you're seeing Uber. So I don't think any of that's there. And the infrastructure is the biggest portion to me. Like you can't build a bunch of cars and then go, wait a minute, where are we going to charge them?
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
I mean, and these guys live in Chicago. They'll remember in Chicago this winter. I don't know if you remember, Kim, but all of the Tesla charging ports were frozen,
Yeah,
and there
because
were
it got so
people
cold.
parked for like days.
Yeah,
I mean, they just left their cars and walked home.
it's crazy.
So I mean, there's just too many factors. There's too many things not working, and they said it too. So let's jump into this last one. I could have tore into autonomous all day. So
I know you could have.
Now, New York City Mayor hails a win for drivers, but they see it differently. And this is from SI Live, and they reported, quote, under the agreement that Adams touted, Uber will begin to phase out the lockout practices, with the company ending the practice entirely by Labor Day if Lyft maintains an annual company utilization rate of at least 50%. As part of the agreement, both companies will also pause bringing on new drivers in an effort increase utilization rates and allow more work for existing drivers. Lyft will minimize lockouts as the onboarding pause continues, according to the mayor's office. Now, the head of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, and actually someone who's worked directly and stood with the mayor in the past, said the agreement on driver lockouts amounts to little more than a handout to the rideshare giants while trying to curb a growing labor movement among drivers. Brian, this was hot topic last week, and I believe even started the week before. Lockouts in New York City were insane, and instantly drivers protested. And so I think this sounds like a way to quell some of that. I don't know how you feel about it politically or legally on this. It doesn't seem like it's really a solution, right? Maybe temporary.
It doesn't seem like a long-term solution, and the drivers are upset about it. So, what I'm hearing is that the government, the New York City Council, took an opportunity to make a deal, and they didn't really talk with the drivers. They didn't get driver input, and now there's this deal in place that seems like it's not really going to solve the problem. And we need something in place that the drivers are behind. So I would encourage the drivers to stay strong, to stay loud. We've seen governments do this all throughout the country. Try to just create a quick fix, try to get that good PR by shaking hands with the big company and saying, hey, look, we solved the problem for the worker. We're still in good standing with the company. Everybody's happy, when in actuality, the drivers are been screwed. So we've seen the power of large numbers of drivers coming together. A big voice will be heard, will get publicity, will get other politicians' attention. So this doesn't have to be over. I would just encourage the drivers to stand strong, stay loud, and keep fighting.
Yeah, like you said, and it's clear. It almost seemed like panic mode for both, Uber and Lyft and the government, because these protests happened quickly and they were effective. And it's interesting though here, because it's, again, and this is what we see this time and time again, but from this article, it's even stating that it's like especially Lyft is willing to negotiate, but they have to throw in, well, we need at least a utilization rate of 50%, or we got to make sure we hit our thresholds to even consider making sure this isn't a problem.
Right.
I don't know how they thought this was going to be a good idea. I'm at a lack of words here. I don't know why they thought locking drivers out was going to be okay for them. They were going to just take it.
Yeah, well, we know that drivers don't just take it. We know that drivers, when they see an injustice, they stand up, and that's, we're proud of how quickly they got attention, of how quickly they were able to unify and come together with one strong voice about what they wanted. But we just keep seeing that the companies are going to do what works best for the companies. The companies are going to always put themselves first, their profits first, and the drivers need to continue to make demands, because if the drivers go silent, they're going to get walked all over. So if in New York City you guys don't like this deal, keep going, keep fighting, keep lobbying, keep whatever you got to do. This is the time, because people are talking about it. You've got the attention that you want. You've got the mayor's ear. If this deal doesn't work for you, get loud. Keep going, and I hope that the government hears your voices, and we've seen them hear your voices and take action before.
Yeah, 100%. So those are our stories this week. Before we head to the weekend, of course, Brian, I will give you the final say.
Yeah, we always remind everybody that consultations are free at Legal Rideshare. You can always talk with us if there's an accident or injury on the roadway. We want to help you strengthen your claim. So, if you get hurt on the job, you're entitled to the payment for the medical bills, lost wages, pain and suffering, any other damage or loss that you sustain. Time is always of the essence. Cases don't get better with time, so let us help you set up a solid foundation. You can reach us through our website at legalrideshare.com. All of our contact information is there. Please do not hesitate.
Awesome. Thank you, Bryant. And as I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you.
All right. Kim.
Okay, so yeah, I'm like, so yeah, I am not a rideshare driver, but I agree, drivers always get screwed. That's what the bottom line comes down to. No driver is ever gonna like a lockout. It's like you're forcing them to do something they don't want to do. Like the bottom line is drivers always get screwed. And I saw that did you actually see the protest? Like there was a lot of drivers.
way more than we've ever seen.
Yeah,
But New York does
amazed.
get the bigger turnouts too.
Yeah, but it was a very big turnout. So fight the fight, as Brian said. You know, these companies, I feel like they think they're bullies sometimes, right? They try to like strong arm a lot of times to get their way, and the driver is the one who always gets pushed to the side. And I always say, don't. That's why we're here a lot of times, is to not let these companies bully everybody around to get their way.
Yeah, I think that Bryant, Jared, sorry, I'm gonna have to say something here, because in New York, it's a very, and Kim, you go to New York way more than me. You're much more familiar with New York. I have been there to do production work and stuff. Only a handful of times. You couldn't like drop me in the city and say, go here. You know, it would take me a minute to get my bearings down, figure out what I need to do. But I am not a big fan of this. Have the app on, you're being paid.
No.
I'm not even a fan of active time and the minimum wage for active time. And I think all of these are tricks, but I'm not a fan of how far New York took it. I'm not a fan that because this is what caused the lockouts.
Yeah.
Look, if I owned Uber and I was only in New York City, I would have, and I mean, I'm not saying I would do it to be mean. I would have to fire probably 60-70% of the drivers if I have to pay every one of them for every minute they're on.
That's crazy.
Because there's a lot of idle time.
There is.
And even if they put in like, hey, you can only skip 1 per hour or whatever, still, that's a lot of idle time. And you're having to pay these people to sit in their cars. That's never been the case with taxis, with any independent contractor role. And in fact, that is the furthest step I've seen. That is completely not independent contractor. That is a W-2 job.
It's an employee model right there. They're telling you what to do, how to work, when to work, what orders or what rides to take. Like they're literally dictating exactly how you should work, which is that's not independent contractorship whatsoever.
No, and in fact, to me, it's like at that point they've like worked it down to a specific amount of money, and it's like somebody had said to me, I wish I could give the credit to who said it to me, but that gig work is just, and I don't believe this, but I thought it was an interesting comment. Gig work is just glorified car rental. Like these apps are just renting your car. They don't care about you. They just need a car to go do things, go. And so if you're going to do this, I'm not going to go beat up my car to fight for blocks, get 4 blocks that add up to 15, 20 hours instead of the 50 I normally work. And then you can get onto these blocks and they say, we don't need you tonight. So, I mean, like at this point, you're pushing it so far that, and by doing all this, I am not siding with the companies, but I got to say, this is the one city I understand it. Like it's New York City, so they almost can't pull out. But if they could, I would think they might, because you can't afford to just pay people to sit in their cars.
No company can afford that.
No. And if that continues, I mean, tell me if you think I'm wrong, Kim, but if that continues, every order is going to become $1 with no tip.
Yeah.
Because they're going to tell the customers, don't tip. We have to pay these drivers to sit.
Yeah.
We know this play. They always do this.
They do.
And I don't know. I don't like the EBT, the earn by time, on any platform. I think that's a test. I really, really don't like where New York's going. I mean, they've taken away the walking feature for delivering food.
Well, I wonder why there's so many New York drivers in New Jersey. Well, there you go. They don't want to be in New York. They are going to come to New Jersey.
And that's the last thing I wanted to hit on, is that, look, if you do this to markets, like New York's different, but if you keep doing this to other markets, they will just leave and go to another market.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, people aren't going to stick around through, oh, you'll pay me $13 to sit in my car, run my gas, my air conditioning all day. I mean, at that point, I mean, my McDonald's on Quebec here in Denver is hiring at $21 an hour.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, why would I take my car out for $13.50? If I can't hustle and make more than that, this is not for me.
And it shouldn't be.
And that's why I say not everybody's cut for the gig economy.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, I mean, we've heard a lot of summer slowdown and whatnot and this and that, but the economy, I honestly believe, is in worse shape than we know. I'm not saying it's like doom and gloom. I'm just saying I don't believe in any politicians being honest. And I think that all of us, I've talked to enough people, even you, Kim. When I go to the grocery store, I told Lou and Mary this Long Island Dash experience just the other day that no joke, I used to have a joke about it, but I actually have a little bit of a panic attack at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Just because I know like, dude, I'm going to have to go home and figure this out. That's not a good feeling when you're just trying to get food. And when you work as hard as we do. So I don't know. Desaturation is my biggest thing, but I don't think idle time should be paid for. Because that could also get somebody to go sit at the edge of a zone on a pier where they're not going to get any pings.
Yeah.
Let
me look on the map. Let me find the place that does not have any restaurant. Not that is such a place in New York City, because there isn't, but I'm just saying, let me go find the least busiest place there is, and I'll just sit around all day.
I mean, Seattle's going to roll back theirs. Today, Minneapolis starts its new law today. This is the first day of the new rideshare model up there. So I don't know. I don't think that we've seen. I'm sure other people would debate me on this, and I'm sure especially the California people. I get those all the time, but I've become a little softer on it, but I still have a very hard view on the Prop 22 thing. There was a lot of accidents that happened there, but all of the other models somehow worked off that, and that didn't work. So now what they're doing is really not working. There's tens of millions of dollars being lost by the restaurants. Like, I could care less about the DoorDash, Uber Eats and stuff, but these restaurants are getting just killed with the fees and the upcharging and but again, I was reading articles that there was a guy saying, like, I can't afford this anymore, but if I don't do it, I'll be out of business because all my other competitors are doing it.
Yeah.
So, wow, guys, I feel like I need to hide my head. I feel like I disagreed with a lot today.
I'm like, I feel like we unpacked a lot. Wow, legal rideshare, look at us go. Thanks for a jam-packed show.
But Kim, you want to? I put in the private chat. If you want to, do you want to take us through that, and then I'll take us through the end.
Yep. Okay. Again, guys, make sure you are subscribed to @Legal Rideshare on their YouTube channel. Make sure that you click the link in the description of this video and make sure you give their live that we just saw today a like and subscribe, and make sure you comment. At least let them know that Kim and Steve sent you there, or just comment on what the whole conversation was about today. I'm sure they would love to hear from each and every one of you. Also, make sure you have their information saved in your phone just in case you need it. Hopefully you won't. I hope you never do, but you know what? Yeah, save it in your phone. It's always good to have. And then once again, make sure you take that survey and enter to win a $100 gift cards. And guys, they are lawyers, so no information is being sold or shared or abused in any way. So go help them out. Go check out their channel and go take that survey.
And I think, before I say this last part, I do think that we did overlook the fact that they were running the tags of a lot of people we know.
Yeah.
I mean, so you guys, they're plugging your names here, and actually like Kim and I were talking about something that we went into the first piece, and they actually said it themselves. Like, you guys leave us comments. They want them. So leave them comments. They're liking this. They learn from you guys. So, I mean, it's big. And so Kim and I will be back here the next 2 Fridays. Is that right? Yeah, the next 2 Fridays, doing the reaction video to the TWIR podcast, This Week in Rideshare. podcast by Legal Rideshare, which can also be found on Spotify and Apple. You guys can find those in the description as well. By the way, if you're wondering, these are all in the description. I make sure that they're all there. But go over, if whatever that the poison is for you, whether it be Apple Podcasts or if you use Spotify or whatever, those are the two big ones for ratings. Go over and find Legal Rideshare. Even if you're like, I don't ever listen to audio podcasts. Who cares? If you're listening to it over here, go over and give them a 5-star and a review or something. Help them like boost up that little bit, because they're helping us. I mean, they'll give you a free consultation. Go over and give them a review. If you need to modify it later, you can. But like for now, like just let's help them out. And of course, YouTube, make sure you go over and subscribe, like, comment, all of it. And they're telling you to. And I just want to reinstate that everybody here knows that Kim and I do not endorse brands we don't believe in. I've known these guys for a long time. Kim knows them too. And honestly, I don't think there's a better call for you to make than these guys. And they're just great guys too. But we don't do that. And so for reference, if I was hurt doing gig work, this would be my first call.
Yeah.
Then I'll deal with my insurance. And if I need to call a lawyer here, whatever, they're going to help me out though, because your brain's going to be in a mixed up state, even if you're fine, about how to handle. I've talked to enough people who were in accidents who I referred over that way. When it happens, they're losing it. I wasn't even my fault. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, okay, settle down, call Legal Rideshare, explain your story, or email them or whatever you want to do. But, get in touch with them before you start reaching out to all the other things, and because you do have a little bit of time. It's not like within an hour you have to start replying to things. Now, you can't put it off, but contact them first. Make sure that they kind of agree, or if they tell you, dude, don't do that, listen to what they say. You don't have to agree with it, but at least listen to it. But thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend. Be safe, earn smart, and
kindness is always free.
And kindness is always free. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend.